So with this part, I want to talk about your final year project. It's likely if you're doing an engineering degree or any sort of them related thing, you will have a project for your final project. This project is a powerful tool in getting a job. This project can make or break your job application. If you choose what is like a floating project, then it's a project that doesn't do too much. You tick boxes, you pass the course, and that's about you. You might get a low mark, you might get a mediocre satisfaction from it, but it's a way to pass the course without really thinking about it too much. You can get simple projects and you can get projects that will just get you through, essentially. You can also get an A in these projects fairly easily, because the simpler the project, the more time you have to write about it, the less time it takes to do, etc. All these things. You can do this, but I wouldn't recommend it as a coach. I would recommend choosing a strong project that you feel passionate about. So if you can find a cool thing to do, maybe some sort of mechanical arm, or some people might consider that a simple project, but I would say mechanical arm's quite hard. It depends on the number of servo motors, etc. But if you choose a fairly complicated mechanical arm or a strong project that you wouldn't maybe not think to do, something to do with signals, something to do with AI maybe, then that will give you a lot more to talk about within your interview process. So a project that gives you a lot of challenges and a lot of things to overcome is exactly what you're looking for. These challenges and overcomes can be used as your interview questions, and you can have them in your bank of knowledge for when you've got a difficult situation coming up and you need to think about a time where you used maybe integration, maybe AI, maybe something along these lines, because that is a very stressful task that could be considered some difficult thing you've overcome within your project or within your working. And the harder the task of overcoming, the more value it's getting towards an interview process, and even to yourself, like even to the whole confidence of knowing you can create a project which is difficult. That is overall worth more when you're presenting to a team, a HR team, whoever you're presenting to. Even if you're presenting just for your final grade project, you will have more confidence because you kind of know more about it, because you need to know more about it, because it's a harder project to understand, so you need to know all the fundamentals to begin with. Real decisions are made throughout this, because if you've got a difficult project which requires signal processing, which requires a little bit of PIDs, a little bit of here and that, and basically all these buzzwords which you could fit into your project if you wanted to make a car that can avoid obstacles, turn around corners, understand signals coming in, maybe even have image processing in there. Obviously I'm talking from more of an electronics perspective here, but that can also be applied to mechanical or civil or wherever you're from. You can find a project which has a lot of your main buzzwords in it, and these projects can prove that you can do them, and it will be really helpful towards your career goals and aspirations within the interview process. And I think that is another part of what makes a good candidate compared to a lesser candidate. A lesser candidate will have perhaps a lesser project, which means they can't talk too much about it. You can only really stretch how difficult something is so much. Like if something reaches a level, then switch something else on. There's not much you can talk about in general. So you can only really stretch your difficulty to too far, especially if someone's technical and knows what they're talking about. In that case, you want something a lot more in-depth. And when you have something more in-depth, people that know what they're talking about know that's quite in-depth. Even if they know they can do it themselves, they know it's kind of difficult, and for that reason, it'll be valued more. One of the anecdotals I had was my lecturer himself did his PhD on part of my project, and one of the things he said to me was, I know this is very difficult to do because I've done it myself for 4 years. So with that, it gives you that wee bit more confidence because you're doing something more difficult, and other people will understand that. Other people will say you've took the initiative to do something more difficult and to challenge yourself, as opposed to doing a project which isn't necessarily as hard, simply put. And it really shows, like, at the end of the day, what kind of person would you take? Would you take the easy route, or maybe you could say you just wanted an A at the end of the day, and maybe you said you wanted to be the best in your class, whatever. Maybe that was your reasoning for it, but that is particularly a strong point, and some people may disagree with. As well as that, some people may get upset by the fact that they might have not chosen the hardest project, and maybe, I wouldn't necessarily call anyone out on it, but I'd say for definite when it comes to jobs and job application, it's a lot harder to do an easier project. From some of the people I've talked to, they've had projects in which they haven't had to do much challenging issues. They've not came across many issues, and when you don't come across many issues, you can't really talk about the issues you come across, because either they're small issues or they're issues that were solved quickly. and for that reason, it doesn't really make a good situation for you to bring up a candidate questionnaire. You can find other candidate questionnaires within your job or wherever else, but if you've not got those, really think about making a more difficult project for that reason, so you can get that experience within a challenging environment.